Hey everybody, today we are going to take a look at social media, or as I like to call it, the forces at the gate, the changing landscape of news delivery. Social media does a lot of different things. As you know, most of you guys get a lot of your information and news from social media, but it's also being incorporated by traditional news organizations, especially broadcast organizations. There's a group called Cox Media Group, which owns large TV stations across the country. Um, and they have kind of gotten into what's known as hyperlocal reporting. In other words, they have various websites that focus in on certain communities so that they can dig a little deeper into what's happening in neighborhoods and in other parts of their coverage area. What they've created is something called neighborhood news. It's known as a fast, free, ad-supported streaming television. Again, this is all pretty much based on the internet. You can watch it on a laptop, a desktop, your phone. And again, it's to cover more communities in a metro area. It started in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they also have one in Atlanta, and they're working on one in Orlando. And this is just a little look at what it looks like.
County has launched the planning process for the Safe Street Action Plan. The plan will combine public input, analysis, and statistics to identify solutions and strategies to help figure out where people want to see safety updates. They're asking for the community's help to take surveys and complete an online map activity to help get information for the plan. Residents can give input on where they want to see safety improvements and share thoughts about the plan. The orange and red on this map represent locations with the highest crash rates over the past 5 years, and those dots are fatality crashes. County leaders hope people will take this information into consideration when providing input. To get involved, visit planning@pond.com/Cherokee_SS4A. Covering Cherokee County, Cameron McCright, Neighborhood TV.
So that again, kind of expands coverage of communities that really resonates with people. They also have a huge social media presence. Um, they actually stopped using X/Twitter for various reasons because of the controversies of it. But they're on Instagram. And then they're also on Facebook. They post a lot of the same things, although they do a little more in-depth reporting on Facebook just because of the nature of what Facebook is and how it's structured. Then another thing that a lot of stations are doing are they're creating digital reporters. This is the ABC-owned station in Los Angeles. They have what they call digital community journalists. They write and post for TV, the web, and social media. They solicit feedback from their readers and their viewers. They shoot and edit their own video, mostly on iPhones. And a lot of the times they work from home or from a local coffee shop. They're embedded in the communities that they cover. Eric Resendez was their East LA storyteller. He just recently left to go take an on-air job at another television station, but he did this for several years in East Los Angeles.
What does East LA mean to us? When you live here, it's like being a part of one big family. I'm ABC7 Eric, and I love living in our community. And I'm here to tell your story with your voice. So hit me up. I want to hear about what matters to you.
And again, he's not only covering that community, he's also soliciting feedback and story ideas from his viewers, which is a great thing that social media can do. Because it is two-way communication. Um, you know, the old school way was, journalism organizations have one-way communication with their audience. They put stories together, they send them out, and people watch it. In the new school of journalism, journalism organizations have to interact with their audience. Anybody can publish. Journalism organizations need to incorporate that mindset to stay relevant. They need to look and see what's out there. They have to vet what they're looking at before they incorporate that information into whatever stories they're doing. What video and photos can be incorporated that they find on social media platforms. It's the veracity check. Is it legit? You know, the gatekeepers are the people who control the information, verify the information. They're the ones that are behind the gate before they send information out. Old gatekeepers were editors, news directors, producers, journalists. Some of the new forces at the gate is the active audience. Again, it becomes a two-way system. Information is not only being put out to consumers, but consumers are putting out information back to journalism organizations. You know, they give you information, everything from posting pictures of something they've seen in their neighborhood to asking questions about a story that a television station or a newspaper did. You can get an idea of what's trending, what are people interested in, and maybe you need to consider those types of stories, even though they may not be traditional journalism stories. But you also, when you put that information out, you need to emphasize that your organization, your journalism organization, still vets information and weeds out bad information. You want people to know that what they're getting from you can be believed because there's so much bad information out there. So, how do you use social media in journalism? Um, you can use it for news gathering, finding story ideas by going through social media, finding sources for a story that you're working on. Who's commenting on social media about state budget hearings? Is it a credible person, somebody who really knows what they're talking about? That can be someone you reach out to for a story that you're working on. And then there's content, UGC, user generated content, photos and video. Again, you have to vet that because, especially in these days of AI, a lot of stuff out there isn't real. So you have to kind of vet that information, and there are ways of doing that, and we'll be discussing that later on in the semester. Crowdsourcing, asking for input from your audience. Say you're doing a story about back to school shopping. You might want to put something out on your social media platforms asking, hey, what are some bargains that you've seen lately? And you'll be surprised how many people will give you that kind of information, and then you can incorporate that into your story. And then at the editorial meetings that you have in your news organization to discuss story ideas, reporters scan social media before the meeting to see what's happening, what's trending. And then there's law enforcement information. Law enforcement these days puts out press releases, updates on ongoing stories. A lot of them shoot and post their own video. And since they're a government agency, you can take that and use that and incorporate that in what you're doing without really having to ask permission ahead of time. And then there's news distribution. That's the other big thing. You can share your information, your stories on multiple platforms. You can do real-time reporting from the field. Live Facebook feeds, live Twitter feeds. You can adjust your stories for each platform. What you do on your news organization's main webpage may be a lot deeper and more informative than what you put on social media platforms. You have to sort of readjust and get down to the basics and the essence of the story for those platforms. TikTok, very video centric. It's less formal. Facebook, you can actually put more information in, more copy and video. You know, on X, you have to be very brief, and you can provide links, to your main story. And Instagram, which also is very visually focused. So, depending on what platform you're putting the information out on, you have to think about, what works well on each of these platforms. What works well on Facebook may not necessarily work well on Instagram. So you have to have two different versions of those stories. TikTok, it's growing as a main source of information. More and more people are turning to TikTok. There are some concerns about credibility and accuracy and vetting. More and more news organizations are experimenting with using TikTok. The Washington Post has this guy, Dave Jorgensen, who they call the TikTok guy. This first link, I won't play it. It's a podcast interview with him about what he does. You can, listen to that on your own time. I suggest you do. But let's, take a look at, some of the stuff he does. So, again, it being TikTok, it's a little less formal. Actually, it's a lot less formal. He has a lot of fun with what he does, but he still uses the platform to explain stuff.
Okay, Texas State House, now we're going to vote to redistrict the state. You're just doing this to help Republicans keep a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. We're walking out. The session ends August 20th. We need them back here. Maybe the president can help. Looks like most of them are in Illinois or New York. Should we send the FBI to go get them? Hi, Mr. President. Yeah, we're kind of busy right now. By the way, if Texas follows through with this, we're going to do partisan redistricting in California, too. There's nothing illegal about drawing lines on the basis of political makeup. I agree with Governor Abbott. We need to win in 2026. Release the Epstein files! Sorry, I can't hear you from the White House roof.
All right, so you can see it is very irreverent, but he did a good job of showing all of the various sides and issues when it came to Texas redistricting its congressional seats, supposedly to help Republicans keep a majority in the House in the midterm elections, and so a lot of them are like that. Oh, and then the LA Times has their own too. Again, you can click on that link at your own leisure if you want to take a look at that. One of the things you can do with social media is, build a brand, get people to know you. Nick Kozer, he used to be originally called the Rapping Weatherman. He was working, I think it was in Boise, Idaho, and I hired him as part of my startup of a TV news operation for Fox in Charlotte, North Carolina. and he's now known as the Dancing Weatherman. He works for Fox Weather Channel now, but he has built up this brand and has become very famous for his dance routines, which has nothing to do with weather, but it does draw attention to him, and people know him, and they'll watch him on the Fox Weather Channel, but they also love to see the fun things he does with his dance routines. And he just has hundreds and hundreds of these dance routines. And notice on TikTok he has 9.5 million followers. So he has really turned this dance thing into a brand. So those are just some of the things to consider when you're doing social media. Um, you know, Delivery, content, the forms they take, brand building, and distribution. Those are all things that social media does. But again, the biggest thing as a journalist is to make sure that when you're putting stuff out, people trust that what you're putting out is true and verified. Again, because a lot of the stuff out there isn't, and a lot of times people don't really see the difference between an influencer who doesn't really follow journalistic principles and an actual journalist who does. So that is very, very important.